What if the thing that you fear the most is keeping you from your greatest life? Why do we run from fear when fear might be guiding us? And are we living or are we just surviving because fear has a control on us? I wanted to make sure I define fear before I go into it. This is going to be a little different structure than I usually do, but I wanted to thank you for being here. I appreciate you. If you feel inclined to, I appreciate a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm currently in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, fear is defined as something we're afraid of. Usually it's a limiting belief. Neville Goddard, the New Thought teacher, says fear is simply a state of mind. And you can easily change your fear by changing the state of mind. And a state of mind is considered an attitude of the mind. A Course in Miracles, a book that kind of teaches love rather than fear, says that fear is just an illusion. And fear is usually an illusion because it's a separation from the divine and from God. Louise Hay, who cured herself of multiple terminal diseases, including cancer twice, she said fear is something that's not true that we believe about ourselves. And the way to get away from fear is to show love and gratitude towards others. That's what she said, fear is. Everyone that kind of like 99% of the people that go see therapists and psychologists, their number one thing is fear, or often causes anxiety or stress. Fear of something. I know that when I was a little kid and I was entering kindergarten, I didn't want to go. I was like scared to death to leave my mom and my dog. I didn't want to go. And my mom, rather than driving in the car to 2 blocks to take me to kindergarten, we walked with the dogs to the school to kind of calm me down because my dog was there, my mom was there. And then when we got to the kindergarten, I mean, my dog was there. I was able to kiss my dog goodbye and pet my dog, and almost like my dog high-fived me. And I really wasn't fearful of anything. And I didn't know why it even was fearful because it was an enjoyable experience. But when I go see charities or I go talk with businesses or athletes, they tell me when I ask them, what's your biggest concern? It's always they're fearful of something. They're fearful they're not going to have enough money at the end of the month to buy food. They're fearful they're not going to have money at the end of the year. They're fearful they're not getting any donations. They're fearful they're not going to be able to save all the animals. They're fearful about something. And then I ask them, why did you start the business? And then they always say that I started the business because I was afraid to be alone all my life. I started the business because I wanted friends. I started the business because I needed some kind of purpose. So a lot of people started businesses based on fear, afraid of being alone, afraid of not having a purpose. Well, let me tell you, starting a business or a nonprofit or anything because you have a mental health incident is not the best way to do it. Because then down the road, years later, like the first 5 years, they say the first 5 years is crucial for any businesses. And even though I say nonprofits, a nonprofit is a business. It's still a business. Or even athletes. I work with a lot of athletes when, especially football. And I would say, so what are you feeling now the big game is coming? And they're like, I'm scared. I said, what do you mean you're scared of what? I said, I'm losing. I said, well, don't think about losing. Think about winning and you won't be scared. So if you change your mindset, then it helps. But, with rescues and with businesses, everyone's, they live in that passion because they want to start a business, whether it's a restaurant business, whether it's building a football stadium, whether it's saving animals or helping scholarship kids. There's always that, there can be always that field thing after that passion, right? So they're usually passionate. Let me help student athletes with scholarship. A lot of I went to see a charity a couple of weeks ago in Sholo, Arizona, and I was actually kind of scared to do this interview with this woman, Kathy, who was the spouse of a officer that was killed in the line of duty. And the reason I really wanted to do the interview with her is because my father was a decorated New York City police officer, and I like to do interviews with charities and businesses that I have a connection with. But I wanted to make sure that when I talk with her, I gave her the respect she needed based on what happened with her husband. He was the first police officer in Sholo to be killed in the line of duty. And it happened in 2016. And it happened only 3 months, 2 to 3 months before he was supposed to retire. And when I went up to Sholo, Arizona, I remember that I was kind of scared because I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I do this right. I need to make sure I do this right. I need to make sure I do this right. And I just didn't want to disrespect anything. So when we went to the Sholo Police Department, because they have a plaque on the wall mentioning the officer, Darren Reed, and they have a room at the Sholo Police Department just for in honor of this police officer, Darren Reed. And when I went into the room, there was a police officer there, and I guess he didn't get the memo because I had called a couple weeks before, letting them know, hey, I was coming up to do an interview. Can I talk to some of the officers for Officer Reed? And I guess the two people that I spoke with, one could not even talk to me. He was still kept tearing up based on what happened 9 years ago. So you knew that he was still. It's almost like he was still. His life was hasn't moved forward. Almost. He was still at the place in 2016 behind the hotel where Darren Reed was killed, because you could tell in his whole body movement that he was even scared to talk to me. And even the other officer that did a voiceover, he didn't want to talk to me too. He was scared, but or anxious or stressed. But where does that fear come from? If Louise says it's an illusion, well, how can an illusion cause all this anxiety almost? And Neville Goddard says it's a state of mind, and just change your attitude of the state of mind by imagining it. Well, I'm thinking that if there's so many quotes about fear, the only thing that I can think of where fear comes from is probably a combination of what A Course in Miracles says, that's an illusion, what Louise says it's a separation, and with Neville Goddard says it's a state of mind. Because we're not born in fear. We're born in love. And fear is a separation of our divine, a separation of love and gratefulness. So my question to you is, why would we ever still continue to live in fear if we know it's a separation from God? Why do we do that?
Fear doesn't just happen in a single moment. It stays. It shapes the way we breathe, the way we choose, even the way we pray. And yet, it doesn't have to own us. In the very next part, I'll share the first steps to finally move through fear and into the life that was always yours. But right now, I want to hear your truth. What fear still echoes in your life? Share in the comments below, because your story might be the light someone else needs today. And then join me in the next chapter. It's one you won't want to miss. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing space.